Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. So in this lecture, we're going to create our very first RDS instance. So this is a lab and you will need to log into the AWS console. Okay, so here I am in the AWS console, and of course, you're going to find RDS under databases. So in here, so let's go ahead and click on that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go in and provision our very first RDS instance. Okay, so here I am in the AWS console. I'm going to go over to RDS, which is under databases. You can note all the different databases in here. The ones that are going to feature in the Certified Solutions Architect Associate exam are mostly RDS, DynamoDB, Elasticache, and Redshift. That's pretty much it for now. Who knows when they're going to update the exams. Let's go over to RDS, and what we're going to do is we're going to go in and provision a database, and we're going to call the database a Cloud Guru. If you haven't gone in before, you're just going to get this splash screen, so go ahead and hit Create Database. The UI has now changed, so I'm just going to close this up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to select our engine option type. So you'll notice that Aurora is by default the preferred database for RDS. Amazon are always going to push out their own product, and to be fair to Amazon, Aurora is an absolutely amazing product. But for the purposes of this lab, we're going to go ahead and do MySQL. And we're going to scroll down, and you can see you can change your different versions in here. I'm going to leave it at 5.7.22. You can do whatever version you like. In here, we've got our different templates. So production templates, essentially this is going to give you high availability and fast, consistent performance. So this will give you multi-AZ. It'll also give you a high-performing disk. And we don't really want this. We're probably just going to go ahead and start off with free tier. In here, we've got our DB instance identifier. So this will be the name of our instance of our RDS instance. It's not our database name per se. It's the name of the RDS instance. I'm just going to call it a Cloud Guru, and I'm going to copy that into my clipboard. In here, we set up our credentials. So we've got our master username. I'm going to do it a Cloud Guru, master password a Cloud Guru, and then we confirm our password in here. Now, because we did do the free tier, all of this is grayed out. And we're just going to do a DB T2 micro. So it's 1 vCPU and 1 gig of RAM, and it's not EBS optimized. In here, we're just going to do a normal 20 gigs of storage. We do have the ability to do storage auto scaling. So this means that you can, add storage on the fly as you run out of space. And in here, you can specify the maximum storage threshold. Just going to leave it all as default. We're not going to do multi-AZ yet. We're going to do that in another lab. In connectivity, we've got our default VPC. You can click in here for additional connectivity configurations. So do you want this to be publicly accessible? I'm going to say no. In here, we've got our VPC security groups. I'm just going to leave it as the default VPC security group. You could go in and create a new one. I am actually going to do that, so I'm going to call it RDS and then launch and then wizard, and we'll look at how we can configure that later. You can select a preferred availability zone, so across the 6 different availability zones in US East 1, I'm just going to say no preference. And you can even change the database port, but I'm going to leave it on the MySQL port of 3306. In here, we've got our additional configuration options. Now, if you do not specify an initial database name, Amazon RDS does not create the database for you, so you'd need to go in and use something like PHP MyAdmin or some way of provisioning or using SQL queries to create a database. You definitely want a database to begin with, so let's type in a Cloud Guru into there. And then in here, we've got enable automatic backups. I'm actually going to drop this down to 0 days, and we'll see why, because we don't really want automated backups turned on. Interestingly, if you uncheck this box, but you leave that as like 7 days, it does turn it on automatically. It's a bit weird. So I'm just going to change this to 0 days, and the backup window you can just do as no preference. And then I'm going to scroll all the way down. Here you've got termination protection, so you can basically stop people from going in and deleting it accidentally. And you can even select your maintenance window, so you could say, hey, I just want to do my maintenance at 1 a.m. Every day for half an hour. Sorry, 1 a.m. on Sunday for half an hour. And so you can specify when your business finds it acceptable to have some downtime. In here, you're going to see your estimated monthly costs. So let's go ahead and hit create database. Now, databases can take a little bit of time to provision. They are a bit slower than using RDS. Than using EC2. EC2 can come up in a couple of minutes, whereas RDS instances tend to take about 5 minutes or 10 minutes to come live. While we're waiting for that to happen, let's go over to EC2. And we're going to go in and provision an EC2 instance. If you still have any instances left over from the last section of the course, feel free to go in and delete them. I'm going to use an Amazon Linux AMI. I'm going to use a T2 Micro. I'm just going to leave everything as standard. However, the one thing I am going to do is going to go down to my advanced details, and I'm going to pass it a bootstrap script. And this bootstrap script is available in the resources section of the course. All it's doing is it's installing PHP, PHP MySQL, as well as Apache. It's then going over to the var www.html directory. It's downloading the latest copy of WordPress, and it's unzipping it. It's then essentially going through and installing WordPress and changing the permissions on the directory so we can write to that directory. So I'm just going to copy this into my clipboard, and in here I'm just going to paste it in here. Next, I'm going to add my storage. 8 gigs is fine. Tags. Let's add a tag, and we'll just call it name. This is WordPress server, something like that. Next, I'm going to go and configure my security groups. I'm going to use my WebDMZ security group. I'm going to hit review and launch. And then I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And I've just got to acknowledge that I have access to the key pair. Now, if you had eagle eyes, you would have seen in our security groups that we actually had a couple of different security groups. We had this RDS launch wizard. So it's launched using RDS. It's launched our RDS instance into this security group. Now, our web server is in this security group, and the problem is our web servers will need to talk to our RDS instances using the MySQL port. So in order to do that, we need to allow RDS, our security group here, to be open to our WebDMZ security group. And to do that, all we need to do is go in here, and we need to go to Edit, and we can go in and add a rule, and we can do it on MySQL. So if we go down to MySQL, so down here, so it's going to open up port 3306, and in here I can actually just type my security group. So I can type in security group, and it's going to hopefully be the top one. I'm getting a frustrating UI issue where it's just hiding behind. So let me just do this. So security group 06, and there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And so that now allows MySQL in from this security group. So it's allowing our web servers to talk to our RDS instance over the MySQL port. So that is now done. If we go back over to EC2, we should hopefully be able to see that instance is now up and running. Let's go back over to RDS and see if it's up online yet. So if I just click on my DB instances, I'll be able to see it in here, and we can see that the status is creating. So I'm just going to pause the video and wait for this RDS instance to come up online. Okay, so that is now available, and if we click in here and click on the name of the database, you'll be able to see all the different connectivity information, as well as monitoring, logs and events, configuration, maintenance and backups, and tags. Monitoring is obviously going to be tied into CloudWatch, so you'll be able to see some CloudWatch metrics in here. We go over to connectivity. This endpoint is our DNS endpoint to connect to our RDS instance. And this is what we're going to need in order to install WordPress. So let's go over to our EC2 instance, which should now be happily up online. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to grab the public IP address and navigate it to it in my browser. So I'm just going to paste my IP address in here and hit enter, and straight away I can see the WordPress screen, and it is basically asking me for a bunch of information. So it wants to know my database name, my username, my password, the host, and then table prefix. So let's go ahead and hit let's go. My database name was A Cloud Guru, so everything was the same, so A Cloud Guru. So I'm just going to paste this in to the different fields. So A Cloud Guru and then A Cloud Guru. Now, the database host, this is saying local host, so it's expecting it's expecting MySQL to be installed on our EC2 instance. Now, of course, it isn't. It's installed on an RDS instance. So what we need to do is put in our RDS connection address in here. So all we need to do is go back over to EC2, go over to RDS and grab our database endpoint, and we just need to paste it in there. So if we click on databases and click on our database in here, I'll be able to grab the endpoint. So we're just grabbing this URL here. So copy that into your clipboard and then paste it into here over localhost and go ahead and hit submit. Now, right now it's saying it can't write the wp-config file. So all we need to do is copy this again into our clipboard, and let's go over to SSH. Let's SSH into our EC2 instance and just write this to the file. So here I am in my terminal window. I'm just going to go over to my EC2 instance, and then I'm going to elevate my privileges to root, so sudo su, and then I'm going to clear the screen. We're just going to go to our cd var www HTML directory. And in here, what we want to do is type nano, and then it's wp-config.php. And then all we want to do is paste it in here. If you get this thing, just hit paste, and then that will paste in our wp-config. Then hit Control X, and then hit yes, and then hit enter. Now go back over to your browser. So I'm back in my browser, and I'm going to hit run the installation. And we'll know that this has worked if you see this page. So let's call our site Hello Cloud Gurus. And my username I'm going to use as acloudguru. My password I'm going to use as acloudguru, which is a terribly weak password. And then in here, just enter an email address if you want, and then go ahead and hit install. Make sure you check this box as well, otherwise you won't be able to install anything if you do use a very weak password. So I'm going to go ahead and hit install WordPress. And it's asking me for an email address. I'm going to enter that in, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit install. And there we go. It says it's been successfully installed. So we've been able to write to our MySQL database. So our WordPress installation has basically gone in and installed the software onto our EC2 instance, and it's now able to write data to our RDS instance. So we will come back and start playing with that EC2 instance. We're going to add read replicas. I'm going to make it multi-AZ. But just remember going into your exam the following point when it comes to RDS. So RDS runs on virtual machines. It runs on virtual machines, but you don't have any access to those virtual machines. So you can't SSH into your RDS instance. And that's really, really important to remember because it comes up in terms of security questions and also patching and maintenance. You can't go in and patch the operating system of your RDS instance. That's not your responsibility. That's Amazon's responsibility. You can do it for EC2, and that is your responsibility, but Amazon's responsible for the patching of both the databases as well as the operating systems that run on them. So patching of the RDS operating system and database is Amazon's responsibility. RDS is not serverless, and you will be tested on this later on in the exam. They will ask you whether or not it's a serverless technology. Now, before everyone jumps up and down and screams at me saying the Aurora has, there's serverless Aurora, yes, that's the exception to the rule. But overall, RDS is not serverless. It does run on virtual machines, and even though you can't access them, Amazon can. So RDS is not serverless with the exception of Aurora, and we'll cover that off in the Aurora lecture. And so Aurora serverless is serverless, but everything else inside RDS is not serverless. So that is it for this lecture, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.